Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Division Three National SAAC Mental and Physical Health hashtag Thrive Together Virtual Town Hall. My name is Don Petrozelli from Newman University, proudly representing the Atlantic East Conference, and I'm excited to be here as the chair of the Mental and Physical Health Subcommittee, working to support and uplift our Division Three student athletes, and I'll be one of your hosts for tonight.
I'm Grace Hadlick from the College of St. Scholastica, proudly representing the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference and also a member of the Mental and Physical Health Subcommittee, serving as the vice chair. It's incredible to see so many of you joining us for this important event. Together, we're creating a historic moment for Division III athletics as we dive into discussions on mental and physical health in ways we haven't done before.
So let's begin with introducing our outstanding presenters and subcommittee members. Leading the way, we will have our esteemed leader and D3 SAC chair, Jack Langen. So start it off for us.
Thank you very much, John. Or Dom. Howdy, I'm Jack Langen, former baseball student athlete at Cornell College, and I proudly represent the Midwest Conference and the American Rivers Conference.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lillian. I'm the vice chair of D3 SAC. I am a field hockey student athlete at Juniata College, and I proudly represent the Landmark Conference and the Centennial Conference.
Hi, my name is Haley Peck. I'm a former women's lacrosse student athlete from Purchase College, and I proudly represent the Skyline Conference.
Hi, I'm Jamie Carfagna. I'm a track and field and cross country student athlete at Muhlenberg College, and I proudly represent the Centennial and Landmark Conference.
Hi everyone, I'm Adobe Nabua. I'm a former women's basketball student athlete at Colby College, and I proudly represent the New England Small College Athletic Conference.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lodge. I'm a softball student athlete at the College of Worcester, and I proudly represent the North Coast Athletic Conference.
Hi, my name is Josie Johnson. I'm a current cross-country and track and field student athlete from Otterbein University, proudly representing the Ohio Athletic Conference.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Smith. I play field hockey at LaSalle University, and I proudly represent the Great Northeast Athletic Conference.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Durr. I am a men's track and field student athlete at Vermont State University, Castleton, and I proudly represent the Little East Conference.
Hi, my name is Holly. I am a tennis student athlete at Alma College, and I am proud to represent the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association.
Hi, y'all. My name is Cami McKenzie. I'm a former student athlete at Hinges College, played soccer, and I'm proud to represent the Southern Athletic Association.
And then there is Nathan Wiseman. He's unfortunately not able to make it tonight due to a basketball game. But he was a great help in creating the slides and the script. Nathan is from Valley Forge University, representing the United East Conference.
Thank you to everyone who played a role in making this event happen, especially our subcommittee members and our SAC liaisons, Katie and Allie, who are here with us tonight. And a thank you to all of you for attending. Whether you're a student athlete, coach, or a part of the Division III community, your presence here is important as we work together to strengthen mental and physical health resources.
I was muted that whole time. So here's kind of what the evening looks like. We just looked into our general introduction of all the subcommittee members. Then we're going to dive into our health overview from the NCAA's newest chief medical officer. Next, we'll transition into a series of presentations by our SAC members, covering key topics related to both mental and physical health.
After tonight's presentation, you'll receive a document that includes key takeaways, personal and group reflection questions, and new tools to share with members of your campus. This will be a great opportunity to spark conversation, reflect on what you've learned, and take the first steps toward making meaningful action.
So then once we're all back together, we'll open the floor to a special guest presentation from Kaya Mahi, and she is a Division III softball student athlete who recently researched on Division III student athlete experiences and life post-graduation. So we're thrilled to have her with us tonight and know her insights that will resonate with many of you.
And finally, we'll wrap up with an open discussion, if we have time, where we'll invite all of you to share any thoughts, questions, or reflections on tonight's topics.
So we're super excited to get started and grateful for this community that has come together to prioritize and uplift mental and physical health of our D3 student athletes. So let's make the most of our time together here tonight.
Thank you again for joining us and being a part of this incredible movement. Now let's begin with a brief overview of what our subcommittee is all about.
So our mental and physical health subcommittee is dedicated to supporting student athletes by kind of providing resources that promotes both mental and physical well-being. And so as leaders, we're committed to educating, listening, and addressing key challenges faced by student athletes. And our main goal is to foster a positive environment where we can thrive together, right? Recognizing that there are unique pressures and needs that come with being a Division III student athlete.
If you've been following us on social media, you may have seen the initiatives we've shared leading up to tonight's event. This includes our one-pager, which can be found on the Division III SAAC page on the NCAA website, many educational graphics on mental and physical wellness, our positive affirmation videos, and our very own mental health minutes. Tonight's virtual town hall is the highlight of months of planning, which began back in July when we gathered for our summer meeting, and we are so thrilled to share it with you all tonight.
And so we are now honored to introduce one of our special guests tonight, Dr. Dina Casiero, who recently became the Chief Medical Officer for the NCAA. Prior to her role, Dr. Casiero served as the Senior Associate Athletics Director for Sports Medicine and Head Team Physician at the University of Connecticut. During her 9 years at UConn, she oversaw vital departments, including athletic training, strength and conditioning, sports nutrition, and athlete mental health. So we are incredibly grateful to have Dr. Casiero with us here tonight as we make history in our virtual town hall. So let's focus in and prepare to gain from her invaluable insights on mental and physical health. So again, Dr. Casiero, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Dom, and thank you to all of SAAC for inviting me to be a part of this town hall. I really do appreciate the opportunity to connect with you all. As Dom mentioned, I have been a team physician for the past 15 years, the past 9 of which at UConn, and prior to that, I was an athletic trainer. And so I have really spent the majority, if not the entirety of my career working firsthand with student athletes. And I'm very used to being on the sidelines with you all, being in the athletic training room with you all. And now I'm sort of transitioning into this other role. But I really take with me all those experiences, being around and with and supporting student athletes into this role, and really hope to shed a different light on this position and the work of the Sports Science Institute with all of my experience. And I will also say I did attend and graduate from a D3 institution, so I thought I would plug that in there as well. So before we get started with the meat of the presentation, I wanted to give you all just an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight and what the sort of layout of my presentation is going to be. We're going to start a little bit with an overview of the Sports Science Institute and the CMO position. I'm not sure how much you all know about my position and what my role is at the NCAA, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also talk a little bit about the role of the NCAA in general in terms of supporting student athlete health and well-being, and how the role of the NCAA differs from the role of your member institutions that you attend. We, of course, will touch on some mental health topics and some physical health topics as well. I want to thank you all for the really great questions that you submitted prior to the talk. Once I had a chance to review those questions, it occurred to me that having a formal Q&A session after the talk would likely not allow us to get to all of your questions. And so instead, what I tried to do is I tried to build my presentation around trying to answer as many of those questions or as many of the themes of those questions as possible. So you'll see filtered throughout my presentation tonight slides that have your actual questions on them, and I will do my best to answer them. So why don't we move on to the presentation, and we'll get started with the next slide. So I always like to start with this slide whenever I'm talking about the role of the NCAA, because a lot of people don't realize the NCAA was created in 1906, and it was actually created for the sole purpose of student athlete health, safety, and performance. And ever since 1906, health and safety has been the foundational component of the NCAA mission. Teddy Roosevelt, our 26th president, was the president who was responsible for the NCAA. After there were 18 deaths in the 1904 football season, Teddy Roosevelt basically had a call to action in 1905 and said something needs to be done about the fact that football players are dying on the football field from the sport. And it was really his call to action that created the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States, which was formed in 1906. And that association actually had 62 charter schools as a member of it. Now, luckily, it was renamed the NCAA in 1910 because nobody wanted to say the IAAUS. That's a little bit of a mouthful. So luckily, it was renamed the NCAA in 1910. But its main purpose was to put rules forth that would protect student athletes, particularly on the football field, and then eventually that was extended to all the other sports that the NCAA ended up adopting. A couple of other fun facts, 1921 was actually the very first NCAA championship, and it was actually in the sport of track and field. That was the first NCAA championship, was track and field. The first basketball championship wasn't actually until 1939. And I always think it's funny to talk about the score of that first basketball game. It was Oregon over Ohio State, and the final score was 46-33. Not exactly the scores that we see in basketball games today, but I thought that was interesting. So all of this to say, the NCAA has come a very long way since 1906, but it was started with health and safety as main priority, and today it is still one of the biggest priorities of the NCAA. Next slide, please. So we'll talk a little bit next about the role of the NCAA and the role of the chief medical officer. As you all know, the NCAA is a member organization that is made up of about 1,100 member institutions. And written into the NCAA Constitution, it says that the individual member schools are the ones that are responsible for student athlete health, safety, and performance. And that makes sense because that's where you all are every day. Those are the people that you see every day. So those folks that are at your institution, they're the ones that are responsible for your health and your safety. The NCAA's role is to provide guidance, resources, education to those schools so that they can then support and protect your health and your safety. And we're going to talk a little bit about this in some later slides, but the way the NCAA goes about providing that guidance and coming up with those educational resources are through our Competitive Safeguards Committee and the advisory structure that supports that committee. And I'll talk a little bit about those committees in a couple of slides. The chief medical officer is, of course, a doctor, but sadly, I'm not your doctor. And so it's difficult to look to me for answers about how to manage your individual medical problems or your individual injuries. But the role that I serve is listening to student athletes, listening to the membership, hearing about the things that you all want to know more about, feel more supported around, have more resources around. And then I take that information back to my department, back to the NCAA, and that's where we really start to do the work to put forth that education and that guidance to support you. There are only 11 people in my department, including me, and there are 500,000 plus student athletes. So it would be really difficult for me and my 10 staff members to provide direct medical care to you all. That's why the structure makes more sense. We provide the information to your school, and then your school provides that protection and that safety to you. Next slide, please. So these are two questions that came through. The first one, why did I switch from being a team physician at UConn to chief medical officer at the NCAA? And what is the best part of my new role? I think the best way that I can answer this question about why I switched is because those that know me know how much I love taking care of student athletes. It literally is what makes me, get up every day and do my job. So for me to walk away from providing direct care to student athletes, it had to be for something big. And I felt that now more than ever, the NCAA needs somebody like me in this seat, somebody who understands what's happening on campuses, somebody who has been there in the training room, on the sidelines, with athletes in their office, talking to them about the things that they're worried about, concerned about, suffering from. I've spent my entire career working closely with student athletes, and I felt like it was important that somebody like me step into this role, because now what's the best part of my new role? Now I get to advocate for student athletes at the national level. In my old job, I oversaw 650 student athletes, and now I get to potentially affect change for 500,000 student athletes. So that is definitely the best part of my role. Nobody ever asks me what the worst part of my new job is, but the worst part is definitely not getting to see you all every day and work with you directly. That's for sure the hardest part for me. Next slide. So this slide is just meant to remind you all that mental and physical health, sport-related illness and injury, training and performance, and education and policy are the health, safety, and performance strategic priorities that were endorsed by the Board of Governors. These are the things that make us get up every day and do our jobs. And if you look at these very much align with a lot of the questions that you all submitted to me prior to my talk, which makes me think that, these types of interactions of me listening to you all talk about what you want to learn more about, that keeps us on the right track. And so the SAAC liaisons know this, but I have expressed my interest in staying very connected with you all as a leadership group to make sure that I'm always listening and I'm always hearing what you all have to say. Next slide, please. So these are really great questions, and I think people don't ask these questions enough, but what is SSI and what does it even do for student athletes? And how does the NCAA and the Sports Science Institute provide guidance for schools and student athletes? I think this is a really great question. If we go to the next slide, we can start to get into the answers. So when you look at the Constitution of the NCAA, you will find 50 plus bylaws that involve health, safety, and performance. Just a few of those most important bylaws are ones like the one that talks about independent medical care. This basically gives the athletic trainers and the team physicians on your campuses unchallengeable authority over the medical decision-making process, which means coaches can't tell you to stay in the game even though the doctor told you you're done. These are the types of bylaws that my department has helped support over the years. The AHCA is the Athletic Healthcare Administrator. This is a dedicated person on the medical staff of your institution that has been deemed the person responsible to oversee the administrative duties of all of those healthcare policies. Having to name a team physician is also legislated by a bylaw. And having member schools mandated to submit concussion management plans, which basically says, this is how we manage concussions on our campus, and they actually have to submit it to the NCAA. These are all bylaws that are supported by the work of CSMAS, which is supported by SSI and the CMO. There are over 200 playing rules that pertain to safety, medical care, and injuries. So again, these are the types of things that my department supports, the conversations around changing playing rules. They are brought forth by the membership and they are executed by the membership, but supported by SSI and the CMO. And then finally, the consensus-based guidance that is put out from my department, the mental health best practices, cardiac care best practices, and information about preventing catastrophic injury and death. So this consensus-based guidance is all collected by SSI through CSMAS and put out to the membership to support you all and your member schools. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is a slide I wanted to spend some time talking about, and this is something that I promised to do as CMO, because I remember when I was a team physician on campus, I didn't really understand the structure as well as I probably should have. And so one of the things I said as CMO is that I want to talk about this more to the membership so that the membership really understands how things get done in the NCAA as it pertains to health and safety. You pull back the curtain of all these rules and regulations, and you wonder, where did they even come from? Who came up with them? So I wanted to show you guys this slide so that you have a better understanding of how this works. And it starts with the box in the middle, the Competitive Safeguards and Medical Aspect of Sport Committee. This is a committee of 25 members. There are SAAC representatives on this, one from each division. There are team doctors, athletic trainers, coaches, athletic directors, strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists, faculty athletic reps, all from the membership that serve on this committee. And this is the Health and Safety Committee. So anything that comes through the NCAA's legislative structure regarding health and safety passes through this committee. Now, this committee, as I said, is made up of members. So we don't always have subject matter experts in terms of scientists on these committees. That's why we developed the advisory group structure. So underneath CSMAS, we have 5 advisory groups. We have one on mental health, we have one on concussion, we have one on performance and training. And these groups, they do have some members on them. They also have SAAC representation on it, but mostly they're made up of the scientific experts. So if CSMAS is posed with a question, perhaps changing a playing rule or not changing a playing rule, because that would be the playing rules committee, but maybe weighing in on the change of a playing rule based on any health or safety concern, we turn to the advisory groups and we ask them for their advice. They give their recommendations to CSMAS, CSMAS deliberates, and then they basically have 2 choices. They can either go to the Board of Governors and say, hey, this is something we want you all to consider, or they make their recommendation to the individual 3 divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3. An example of what we did recently was around cannabinoids. When CSMAS made the recommendation to remove cannabinoids from the banned substance list, they took that to the divisions and they let each division make their own decision about what they wanted to do about cannabinoids. And then you see SSI all the way to the left. Our little 11 staff members, we support CSMAS. So we run the meetings, we provide administrative support for the members, we point them in the right direction in terms of the experts to get the right people in the room to have the conversations. But CSMAS, which is made up of the members, are the ones that make the decisions. Not SSI, not CMO, but the membership. Go ahead, next slide. So now I'd like to transition into a slide that I think is very important, especially for you as SAAC members, because it highlights one of the ways that my department tracks on what's important to student athletes. So what you're looking at is data from the 2023 NCAA Student Athlete Health and Wellness Study. And the question is, I wish the coaches and administrators at my school talked more with my team about the following wellness topics. So this is a signal to my department to say, this is what student athletes want to know more about. And when I look at these numbers and I look at the questions that you all submitted to me, it perfectly aligns. You want to know more about nutrition. You, of course, want more information, education education resources and support around mental health. Sleep comes up a lot. Body image is still coming up a lot. And so I will tell you, we will talk a little bit about some of these topics today, but this is definitely a future focus for SSI and areas where we want to dig into. So I also just want to make a plug for the actual surveys themselves and say thank you for filling out the surveys. I know you all already have a lot on your plate and a lot to do, and I'm sure when these surveys get put in front of you, it's probably the last thing that you want to do is sit down and answer these questions. But the next time you get one of these surveys in front of you, I want you to really remember how important the answers you choose are to the work of our department, because it really does signal us to go in certain directions. So thank you very much for that. Go ahead and next slide. So we'll transition into a little bit of a mental health recap. We'll start with a submitted question, which was, how has the conversation around mental health changed in recent years and what growth has happened? Next slide. I think the best way to answer this question is to show you all a timeline of what has transpired around mental health since SSI was established back in 2013. So a mental health task force was put together soon after SSI was established, and that informed a comprehensive overview of student athlete mental health that was entitled Mind, Body, and Sport. And this was published in 2014 on the NCAA website. Soon after that came out, there was really a push for a more formalized legislated document, which ended up being the Mental Health Best Practices First Edition, put together in 2016, updated in 2018. And again, this is a legislated document that basically tells campuses that you need to make sure that you have these things in place for your student athletes. In 2020, the Diverse Student Athlete Mental Health and Wellbeing Summit occurred. This is the first of its kind, and that informed a need to update the mental health best practices to the second edition, which ended up happening in 2024. And so all of this to say, obviously a lot has happened in the last decade plus as it pertains to mental health, but I can promise you that we're not done yet. There's still a lot of work left to be done in this space. The next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about how we know that we need to keep moving forward in this space. Next slide, please. So this is, again, another tidbit from the Student Athlete Health and Wellness Study. And these are 3 questions that were asked as it pertains to campus mental health support. So the first question says, I know where to go on campus if I have mental health concerns. These numbers are okay, 67, 72%. They're better than they used to be, but I think they can get a lot better, right? We want to see these numbers closer to 100%. The second question is the one that really, really, really bothers me. I would feel comfortable seeking support from a mental health provider on my campus. And only 50% of student athletes feel comfortable seeking support from a mental health provider on their campus. And this is a question that I really want to dig into with student athletes and find out what it is exactly that's making them feel uncomfortable. Is it because there's concerns about privacy? And that's one of the things that I heard when I was on campus. I'd love to go see the mental health provider on campus, but I don't want my coach to find out. I don't want my teammates to find out. And there are confidentiality rules and laws in place, but I want to make sure that membership schools are talking to their student athletes about that so that student athletes feel more comfortable seeking support on their campus. And then the last question is about feeling inadequate if I sought help. And you can see those numbers are low, but they're not 0. And they're a little bit higher for men. So we know that there's still a stigma attached to feeling like it's okay to say, I think I need psychological help. This is another signal to us that we're not done doing work in this space and that there's more to come. Next slide. So this slide basically is to remind you all that the updated mental health best practices became effective August 1st, 2024. As a reminder, this was a document that was created by CSMAS with recommendations from the Mental Health Advisory Group. It is a legislated document that states that all schools must provide resources and services consistent with the mental health best practices. These resources that you see on the slide are just some of the ones that are already available on our website, but there are a lot more to come. We have an upcoming SSI Spotlight series on this topic, a dedicated session at convention just to helping schools implement the updated mental health best practices. We have an LMS learning module, and then the Mental Health Advisory Group is set to meet to talk about adding even more resources to the website. So lots more to come. Next slide. I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes talking about each best practice so that you have a little bit of an idea of what these best practices mean when we break them down. So the first best practice is called environments. And really it's about creating healthy environments on campuses that support mental health and well-being. These plans need to be developed in collaboration with a licensed mental health professional. And the plans have to be multi-level. They have to support student athletes individually, they have to support teams, they have to support the athletic department, and then they have to support the overall campus culture. And so some questions that you can ask yourself or you can ask those on your campuses is, does my school have a plan? Have I seen it? How does my athletic department promote an environment that supports mental health and encourages help-seeking behaviors when necessary? The second pillar or best practice is about screening, and the updated best practices states that member schools have to screen student athletes at least once a year. So questions you might ask yourself is, when and how does screening take place at my institution? And what's the plan if symptoms are identified? The third pillar or best practice is about preparedness with emergency action plans. There are mental health emergency action plans that need to be in place and they need to be rehearsed. So a question you could ask is, where is our mental health emergency action plan? When was the last time it was rehearsed? How is my campus educating student athletes on mental health and related items? And does this education include what to do to support a teammate who's having symptoms? That was another question that was submitted to me. What do I do if a teammate is struggling? How do I know how to help them? The answer is your member school should be talking to you about these things based on the new best practices. And that is a difficult question for me to answer because I'm not sure what the protocols are on your campus. So the best thing to do is ask folks on your campus, if I have a teammate that's struggling, how can I help them get help? And then the last pillar is about the licensure of the mental health providers on your campus. And so they need to be licensed, and you should ask yourself, do I know where and how to request time with a mental health provider should I feel like I need one? Next slide, please. So we'll transition now into a little bit more of the physical health space, talking a little bit about nutrition and sleep. A submitted question that I received was, does sleep or diet impact athletic performance? And the answer is yes and yes. And in fact, quantity, quality, and proper timing actually pertain both to sleep and nutrition. There are a lot of NCAA resources available on sleep and nutrition, but as I mentioned earlier, this is a future focus for SSI, and we're going to continue to develop resources in this space, especially in response to that survey result that showed that student athletes are really asking for more information in this space. We already have 7 nutrition fact sheets on the website. So if you haven't checked them out and you're interested, please do that. 3 for hydration and 1 for sleep. But as I mentioned, a lot more to come. Next slide, please. So let's go into a couple of true or false questions. So the first question is true or false? Increased sleep improves athletic performance. Go ahead and advance. And that is true. There was a recent study involving men's basketball players that showed improved reaction time, faster time sprints, and a 9% increase in shooting percentage following them increasing their sleep by 8, so that they got 8 to 10 hours per night. In fact, this study also showed increased mood and overall better ratings of physical and mental well-being during practice and games. So honestly, you can think of sleep as a legal performance enhancing drug. One of the questions that I got before this presentation was, what can I do to improve my performance? What can I do to improve my recovery? And I can tell you that the answer for sure is more sleep. Next slide. True or false, poor sleep increases your risk of injury. Go ahead and advance. True. Adolescent athletes who reported sleeping less than 8 hours a night were 1.7 times more likely to have a musculoskeletal injury. If I told a student athlete, if you do this, you're twice as likely to have an injury, most student athletes would think twice about doing that thing, right? And so not getting enough sleep is that thing. So definitely something that we want to think about. All right, go ahead and advance. And then before we move on to the nutrition, I'll just say one more thing. Nobody submitted any questions to me about social media and what effect that has on any of this. And to be honest, I could talk for another 3 hours on this topic, and I'm sure you'll hear more from me on this in the future. But for sure, social media affects sleep, particularly if you're one of those people who scroll on your phone before bedtime, when you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep. Even if you're wearing blue light blockers, all of that stimulation is going to affect your sleep quantity and your sleep quality. So definitely things to think about. A couple hours before bed, try to stay off the devices if possible. So true or false, student athletes score well when they are asked basic nutrition questions. Go ahead and advance. False. A recent study showed that student athletes scored only 46% on basic sport nutrition questions. And most of the questions that they got wrong pertain to underfueling. So usually student athletes underestimate how much fuel they need in order to have enough calories to provide their strength that they need for their sport and also for recovery. So it's studies like this one came out of the Journal of International Society of Sports Nutrition, and the survey results that we give to student athletes that point to the fact that student athletes need more education around this area. So as a reminder, 7 fact sheets on the website, more to come on this for sure. And then the next slide, which I think is my last slide. So one question that I received was, what type of data or research does the NCAA and SSI conduct? And so this slide is a high-level overview of what we at SSI do in the data and research space. So the NCAA entered into a financial agreement with the Department of Defense, and they created what's called the CARE Consortium. And this was over 10 years ago. And this ends up being the largest and most comprehensive study of concussion ever done. And to give you all a sense of how big this study is, prior to this study, a big concussion study was thought to have about 20 concussed patients in it. This study, which has been going on now for over 10 years, has 5,000 concussed patients in it. And the subject in this study are either NCAA athletes or military cadets, which have a very similar demographic in terms of physical fitness and age and that sort of thing. And so we have gotten so much information out of this study. The NCAA has been heavily involved in this work for the past 10 years. So much has come out of these studies that have shaped the way we identify concussion, the way we manage concussion, the way we rehabilitate athletes to get back on the court and the field. And so really, really important stuff being done there. The injury surveillance program is another thing that the NCAA oversees. My department oversees it in particular. This is where your athletic trainers, the ones that participate in the injury surveillance program, submit injury data to the NCAA. So we can track how many concussions happen in women's soccer and the preseason versus in season versus the postseason. So really, really important data that we can then ask the data surveillance program questions, clinical questions, and get those types of answers. And we've made changes to rules around playing in practice season based on the information that comes out of this data. We also oversee the catastrophic injury reporting. This is another mandate. Any catastrophic injuries that occur on campuses, schools have to report that to us. And then finally, we partner with our research department on the well-being surveys that I showed you today. And those surveys are really a great way, as I mentioned, for us to track on what is important to you all. So that is it for my presentation. I really do appreciate you inviting me. I appreciate all the questions that you sent in ahead of time. And I really look forward to looking for ways to continue to connect with you all in the future. So thank you again.
Yeah, and Dr. Casiero, thank you for generously, sharing your expertise and insights, and especially your time tonight, with us this evening. Your experience, knowledge, you've impacted this town hall greatly, and your understanding, and we truly appreciate your time and dedication to be here tonight. So, once again, thank you from myself and the rest of the D3 SAAC Mental and Physical Health Subcommittee, and all of D3 SAAC and all the wonderful attendees here tonight.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you all very soon. Good night.
Now, we're excited to move into our subcommittee presentations. Since July, our subcommittee members have been hard at work researching and preparing 3 to 5 minute presentations on key topics in mental and physical health. Tonight, they'll be sharing their insights, and we're thrilled to see their dedication and hard work come to life. Following tonight's virtual town hall, you'll receive a set of talking points from each presentation, allowing you to bring this valuable information and fresh conversation starters back to your own campus or conference. Thank you, and let's get started on our first subcommittee presentation.
So, hi everyone, Adobe here again. Cami and I are going to be starting off with mental blocks. So in athletics, mental blocks are psychological barriers that prevent athletes from performing at their best. So this can manifest in many ways, such as anxiety, self-doubt, or even physical hesitation during critical moments. The important thing to remember is that this looks different from person to person. So if you think back to maybe like a big game that you've had, and you might have hesitated physically in that moment, but your teammate might just have, some self-doubt in those moments. So just keep that in mind as well. So if you take a quick second to maybe think back to when you've had like a mental block, whether that is in a practice or a game, match, or meet, whatever you call it, and just think about how you felt in that moment. I know that it's something that a lot of us experience on a day-to-day. And for example, as a basketball player, I might suddenly struggle with my free throws if I'm really stressed or if I have a lot of things on my mind. I know that as a Division 3 community, we kind of all know what that's like. Another example is that a gymnast may hesitate on a move they performed perfectly before. So mental blocks can occur unexpectedly and can be very challenging to overcome.
So now going into how do mental blocks affect our performance. Mental blocks can lead to a drop in confidence, increased stress, and even have a temporary loss of skill with your performance. They can cause athletes to doubt their abilities. For my people that watched the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, we saw this with Simone Biles, where she experienced what gymnasts refer to as twisties, which is a mental block that disrupts spatial awareness during a routine. Now, transitioning into what are the steps into overcoming mental blocks. The first steps of understanding what causes mental blocks is an essential step towards overcoming them. Triggers can cause many effects, such as pressure to perform, fear of failure, overthinking, or even fatigue. By identifying patterns, athletes can begin to recognize when they are most vulnerable to mental blocks.
So the good thing is that there are strategies out there to kind of help you overcome mental blocks. I know one powerful tool is visualization, which can help you kind of rehearse your performance to help you build confidence. I know I used to kind of think about going out on the basketball floor and dunking on someone, even though I can't dunk, but that just kind of helped me build my confidence when before a match or a game. Another strategy is mindfulness. So this can kind of help you stay focused in the present moment and not worried about past mistakes or future outcomes, which is huge. Self-care is really, really important. I don't know about everyone else, but I know I have a whole routine, which includes like engaging with my family and friends, praying or having a cup of tea, which I highly recommend for anyone on here. Um, Engaging in hobbies like outside of your sport too is really, really huge. Deep breathing exercises, talking to someone you trust, whether that be a friend, a family member, or a therapist, journaling, the list goes on. So you kind of just have to figure out what works best for you. And you might try one technique and it works once and it doesn't work again, but just keep going and don't give up and turn the mental blocks into building blocks.
Hello, again, I'm Lillian. I am a field hockey student athlete at Juniata College, and I represent the Landmark Conference.
And I'm Caitlin. I play field hockey at LaSalle University, and I represent the Great Northeast Atlantic Athletic Conference.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about motivation. Obviously, this is something that most of you probably experience a lot in order to keep playing at the Division III level. So motivation is what keeps you going and encourages you to persevere. And there's a lot of personal experiences that go with motivation, and that impacts both your mental and physical health. So it's really important to understand what motivates you. And if that's not your sport, then it needs to be a network of people around you who are able to help you keep going through your sport until you can find that motivation for it again. So for example, sometimes your love of your sport isn't enough to really keep you motivated, but others around you can, and that can help your mental health as well. So for me, as a field hockey player, if I'm having a really bad day, I know that I can count on my friends to motivate me mentally. They can put their belief into me, and then that helps me be able to perform better on the field because then I'm in a better mental mindset. So motivation can really help you get out of mental funks and overcome those mental blocks that Adobe and Cami were just talking about.
As much as we have mental blocks as well as we have hard time motivating us mentally, it is important to focus on motivating us physically as well. So sometimes we have to think mind over body. There's a lot of instances where our bodies can be in a lot of pain and we're focusing on the pain rather than we know we can do this and we have to keep the motivation up. So by motivating us physically, we have to think more mind over body rather than how much our body is hurting.
Thank you, Lillian and Caitlin. Again, my name is Holly. I'm a tennis student athlete at Alma College, and I represent the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about healthy relationships. Whether it's with yourself, your teammates, your peers, it's important to build healthy relationships with the people in your life to ensure positive mental and physical health. We'll start off by talking about a healthy relationship with yourself. Developing a healthy relationship with yourself is crucial for overall well-being and success as a student athlete. Positive self-talk looks like encouraging yourself during tough practices or games by saying things like, I can handle this challenge, instead of just focusing on the mistakes. Prioritizing self-care, both mentally and physically, means getting enough sleep, eating well, and taking breaks when needed to recharge. By fostering self-compassion and self-discipline, such as forgiving yourself for setbacks while staying committed to your goals, you build a strong foundation for thriving in all areas of life. Self-awareness means recognizing when you're feeling overwhelmed and taking steps to manage stress, such as journaling or seeking feedback to improve. Next, we will talk about healthy relationships with your teammates. Building healthy relationships with teammates is essential for fostering a strong, cohesive team. Teamwork and collaboration look like clear communication, shared goals, and supporting each other's roles on and off the field. Positive reinforcement involves celebrating successes and encouraging one another, boosting morale and confidence. Effective conflict resolution looks like addressing disagreements calmly, listening to different perspectives, and finding solutions that benefit the team. Together, these elements can create a supportive and high-performing team environment where everyone can thrive. Lastly, we'll talk about healthy relationships with your peers. Developing healthy relationships with your peers, especially friends who may not be athletes, is essential for balancing academics and athletics. A strong support team means friends understanding your athletic commitments and providing encouragement, whether it's helping with study sessions or being there for you outside of sports. Setting healthy boundaries involves communicating your schedule and finding time for both socializing and self-care. These relationships can help create a balanced environment where academic, athletic, and personal needs are all respected, fostering mutual support and understanding in different areas of life. Now, these are just some examples of healthy relationships with people that are in your lives as student athletes. You can take these themes and apply them to other people and relationships that may be present in your lives as well. To finish, I pose this question to you to think about. How do you set healthy boundaries with teammates, coaches, and others to maintain balance between your personal life and athletic commitments?
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Lodge. I'm a softball student athlete at the College of Worcester, and I proudly represent the North Coast Athletic Conference. I'm going to be taking you through sports performance, both mental and physical. So sports performance impacts both sides of the game. And as a student athlete, the athlete part can be a big part of your identity. I know my teammates on the call know how much softball is a part of my identity. So performance can directly impact self-esteem, both positive and negative. Poor performance can cause stress, and stress can take a toll on your body. Fueling your body and practicing high-stakes situations can prepare you to have the best performance when it counts. And one of the most important skills about sports performance is being able to separate what happens on the field, court, pool, course, whatever it is, with the rest of your day. So whether you go and you have a bad practice, not letting that affect, hanging out with your team at dinner or your test the next day. So, next slide. So one thing that I do to separate the two is I say to myself, your performance in sport does not define you. So I'd like you to take a moment, maybe turn to the people you're watching with if you're at a watch party, and say, talk about what this quote means to you and what can you do to remind yourself when facing adversity.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, my name is Jack Langan, a former baseball student athlete from Cornell College, and I proudly represent the Midwest Conference. I'll be taking us through the importance of proper nutrition. The key to a successful season is proper nutrition. Having the right fuel is essential for a full day of classes and workouts, giving you the energy and endurance needed to perform at your best. Remember, it's not just about loading up on protein. A balanced plate is essential. Make sure to include plenty of carbohydrates for sustained energy, proteins for muscle repair and growth, and fats for long-lasting fuel. Additionally, aim for foods rich in vitamins and minerals to support immune health, cognitive function, and overall vitality. Good food in, good results out.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Jack. I will be continuing our discussion on nutrition. Again, my name is Josie, and I am a cross-country and track student athlete at Otterbein University, proudly representing the Ohio Athletic Conference. And thank you so much for being here. Research shows that 70% of athletes may not consume enough calories to meet their body's needs, and 73% of male athletes in particular struggle to get adequate nutrition. Without proper fuel, both physical and mental health performance can suffer, leading to fatigue, reduced focus, and a higher risk of injury. To get the nutrition you need, aim for 3 balanced meals each day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, while also paying attention to portion sizes and quality ingredients. Making sure to eat properly and consume enough calories is essential for maintaining energy and achieving peak performance throughout the season. For Division III athletes who may juggle academics, part-time jobs, and other responsibilities, this challenge is even more pronounced. Raising awareness on this issue is essential to ensure D3 athletes have access to resources and information. Nutrition is key to success and having energy to continue to do their incredible work.
Thank you, Jack and Josie. Once again, my name is Haley, and I'm a former women's lacrosse student athlete from Purchase College, and I proudly represent the Skyline Conference. Jamie and I will be talking about injuries. When struggling with an injury, most athletes often worry about the loss of their starting position, the uncertainty of rehabilitation, and what it will take to get back to the high level of playing again. Not many people realize that with the physical toll an injury can leave someone with, there is also a huge mental toll.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Carfagna. I'm a track and field and cross country student athlete at Muhlenberg College, and I proudly represent the Centennial Conference. So I'll be continuing talking about injuries. Thank you, Haley. So there are multiple ways to cope with this feeling when you have an injury. One way is through social support. It is extremely important to stay as close as possible to routine and as much as possible to the team as well. Being injured may make you think that there's a disconnect to the team, being not able to play, but this is completely false. Doing these will help keep a positive outlook on life and your sport because you're still a member of the team no matter what, even if you're injured or not.
Next is to set realistic goals that you can achieve throughout the recovery process of your injury. These could be as small as day-to-day or long-term goals. It is also important to stay on top of your rehabilitation exercises in order to heal and come back feeling stronger and better. Also, prioritizing rest is one of the most important aspects of an injury because your body is only going to heal with the proper self-care and time to recoup. Lack of sleep will delay the recovery process and cause more harm than good.
Lastly, you should find activities that are safe to enjoy and something you appreciate while you cannot participate in your sport. And this will allow you to keep yourself motivated, happy, and healthy. This is also a great way to become stronger and work on your body back to its full potential.
That concludes our subcommittee presentations. I just want to say a huge thank you to each of our subcommittee members for your impressive presentations and all the hard work that you guys have put in. Your dedication to these topics in mental and physical health has given us all valuable insights and practical takeaways. Remember, at the end, you'll receive a set of talking points from each presentation to help continue these conversations within your own campuses and conferences.
So it is now my honor to introduce Kaya Mahi, a dedicated softball student athlete from Muhlenberg College. Kaya is pursuing her major in psychology with a minor in public health. So combining her academic interests with her passion for understanding the well-being of athletes. She'll be sharing some recent research on a topic of athletic retirement, a subject that impacts so many individuals in sports, and one that Kaya has explored with both depth and compassion. So Kaya, we're thrilled to have you here with us tonight, and thank you for bringing your insights and expertise to this discussion. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dom, for the introduction. Again, my name is Kaya Mahi. I'm a senior on the Muhlenberg College softball team. Like Dom said, I'll be talking about my research regarding the relationship between athletic identity and transition after athletic retirement, and I call it a big piece of our identity that kind of goes away. I first just want to ask everyone to just try this quick activity and think about the different identities that you all possess. Just take about 20 seconds, jot them down on anything you have available. Was this a simple task? Was it difficult to identify numerous identities for yourself? Consider your list and the answers to these questions as we discuss the impact of athletic identity on ability to transition to post-grad life. And here's just a little bit of background information about my research and definitions of terms that I'll be using throughout. Normative retirement would include graduation or eligibility expiration, while non-normative retirement would include reasons like injury, mental health, COVID, things like that. Past research has supported that normative retirement has led to an easier transition than non-normative because of the lack of closure and control over their athletic career. And past research has also said that athletic trainers and coaches can work with student athletes to help them best prepare for that transition. And here's what I actually did. I interviewed 12 Muhlenberg student athlete alumni, asked them about their experience playing sports at Muhlenberg and how their transition overall was. I also interviewed 4 coaches and an athletic trainer to learn about those perspectives and their role in the process for the students. And then just a little summary about what I found, along with some quotes from my participants that stood out to me. Some factors that participants mentioned that made the transition more difficult were trouble replicating that feeling of being on a team and just overall relationships with teammates, the lack of resources or lack of knowledge about resources available to them, and coaches just not knowing this topic as a significant issue. 100% of non-normative retiring participants agreed that their experience with post-grad life was harder to come to terms with because of that, and those who retired normatively said that they would imagine it to be much more difficult. Further, only 3 out of 12 participants explicitly mentioned feeling supported by coaches regarding their transition without sports. The interview suggested that something else may be a more significant factor in the ease of transition for student athletes after graduation, other than that reason for retirement that I was expecting, and I'm sure you can guess what it is. Athletic identity. Athletic identity is how much an individual is connected to the role of an athlete. This is something all student athletes, no matter the reason for retirement, can struggle with when transitioning to their lives without college sports. According to past research, higher athletic identity is linked with a higher chance of severe emotional disturbance during a major life transition, and this was consistent with my research. 50 participants mentioned feelings of identity loss without even being asked or prompted about anything having to do with identity. Those who exhibited higher levels of athletic identity did experience greater struggles adapting to post-grad life. And then on the flip side, 2 participants noted that they had interests, activities, friends outside of athletics, and they do believe that this is what allowed them to transition easier. Now to discuss the role of coaches and athletic trainers. When interviewing the coaches, 100% of them said that they offer support to student athletes, no matter the reason for retirement, normative, non-normative. And even though they said that, as you can recall, only 3 out of 12 of the former student athletes felt that they had that support. And this is not to discredit any coaches or say that they're not doing their job. It's just maybe saying that that message is not hitting home as much as they think. And on the positive side, the ways that student athletes did feel supported was through continued contact, check-ins from coaches following retirement, offering alternative roles on the team, and help networking, and all of those should continue. And then here are some suggestions made by my participants. Student athletes, for the most part, just felt that they weren't prepared for the inevitable. They suggested things like an athlete mental health team conversation, presentations or workshops that are just focused on developing skills or a plan to thrive post-grad, and meetings for coaches on how to support their student athletes. And another really interesting suggestion that I really liked was a preliminary mental health form, very similar to the physical health form that all athletes have to do at the beginning of the new season. It would just allow athletic trainers and coaches to just know where a student athlete is at mentally so they can best support them. And it takes away that awkwardness or the stress of the student athlete having to initiate that conversation, especially as a first year. Now I just ask you to think back to that list you made at the beginning of the identities that you possess. Do you feel that you are prepared for when your athletic identity disappears? What changes can you make to better prepare for the inevitable? And I just wanted to wrap up by sharing why I think this topic is so important. My work has already prompted conversations at my school and is a topic that people want to learn more about, and there's so much more to learn. Student athletes can use this to prepare for life without their sport after graduation by just being open to opportunities and interests that they may not have tried before or even know is out there. It's also really important to note that part of the Division III experience is not only being an athlete, but a student and person first. There's the ability to explore other interests, and if student athletes receive that encouragement from coaches or other athletic staff to do this, they may be more willing to try. And exploring other identities does not need to take away from athletics or mean that you won't perform as well. It just means you're getting all out of your college experience, practicing time management, and making yourself a more well-rounded individual. Thank you so much for listening. And now you all have the chance to ask any questions you have. I believe the question chat should now be open.
Kaya, thank you so much. And yeah, the Q&A session is now open. It's at the top. You can kind of go into the Q&A button at the top of your screen and then submit some questions, and then we'll approve them, and then we'll go from there. So Kaya, this one looks like it's first for you. So what is the biggest thing you have learned while participating in college athletics to help you overcome setbacks off your field of play, kind of relating back to your research and that kind of stuff?
I think it just relates to a lot of what the subcommittee also touched on, that what you do in your sport does not define who you are, and that there is so much more to you than how you perform in your sport. And just it helps give a lot of perspective about what's important. And at the end of the day, we're playing our sport because we enjoy it, and we should continue to enjoy it no matter the ups and downs. You're going to lose, you're going to win, and it just matters that you're having fun. And yeah, it gives a lot of perspective that one day this isn't going to be here, so you should enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, and I think one of the follow-up questions is, should the discussion of athletic retirement and stuff like that when should that conversation be started? Should it be started freshman year or later? This is coming from Coach Lindy. So yeah.
That's a really good question. And I have seen, like through my research, I've seen other schools have programs that do have conversations like this starting in like the senior or junior year. And I just think that it's not as beneficial as it could be or as a freshman or a sophomore, just because you need to have those like ideas planted in the back of your head. Even if you don't know what life is going to be like after college, it's good to just have it as a thought and just something that you can look back on when you are a senior and be like, oh, I thought this then and I've progressed, or you can see the growth or the changes that you have made to actually work towards building an identity more than your athletic one.
Awesome. Yeah. I see a lot of other questions coming in, trying to get them for Kaya, and then we'll regroup into the other side of things. So kind of last call for Kaya questions, and then we will shift over to other of the subcommittee member questions. So I'll give that another minute. So we're gonna move through. Oh yes, okay. So this is from Jillian. What does Muhlenberg do to help aid in the process of post-graduation for student athletes?
Well, I will say, I mean, it's a little biased, but Muhlenberg is one of the best kind of support that I've ever received from like athletic staff, and I've never been scared to like walk up to an athletic director and say that I have concerns about something. So I think that's where it starts, just being open to having conversations. And even with my research, I never really thought about this beforehand, but I brought it to the athletic directors and they ran with it. And we've had a panel that they helped me organize where I just continue to share what I've learned. And I think that was really great. And I hope that stuff like that continues. But also we do have a club called Head in the Game, another shameless plug I have to make, where we just have conversations about all things student athlete, and that can include like how to time manage with just classes, and like we don't even talk about athletics, and it just reminds us that even though this is a group for student athletes, we do talk about things that don't have to do with our sport. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you just answered this question in your response there. The next question was, how do you bring these conversations up to your coaches and athletic departments? And I think you just kind of answered that, but can you just kind of touch on that again real quick?
Yeah, sure. And I think also, like, if you can encourage coaches to just learn about this, I'm hoping there's a lot of coaches here right now, but if not, if like, I will be happy to explain anything to coaches, because I think in some cases they just don't know, and it's not because they don't care, they just aren't aware that this is an issue that their student athletes are facing, and they might be willing to help, they just need to know that it is something that you want help with.
Yeah, right. The answer is always no unless you ask. Okay, I'm just scrolling through these questions again. And Kai, I think there's one more, unless we might want to shift this one to a subcommittee member. But how do you continue to stay active and motivated that you are no longer a student athlete, or when you're when you're no longer a student athlete?
Yeah, I am still a student athlete, so this isn't a concern for me right now. But I am, because of this research, I've already been planning and like preparing for that time at the end of the spring season. And I think it's trial and error. You're not going to find your passion for being active right away. It may take a few things to realize that's not working for you. And I think just being patient and not putting too much pressure on yourself to find it right away is really important. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try out a few things, going to be different, having to have my own workouts and things like that, but it's definitely doable. But if anyone on the subcommittee wants to talk on that too.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect branch into our next set of questions and stuff like that. So Grace, why don't you take it away here?
No, absolutely. And thank you, Kaya, for sharing your research and your insights with us. Your perspective on student athlete retirement has been incredibly valuable, and we really deeply appreciate your time and dedication with us here tonight. Before we officially wrap up tonight's presentation and with some final thoughts and feedback, I just want to take a moment to capture this experience. So please, if everyone could turn on your cameras and give us a smile so we can remember this moment forever.
I will say this is just amazing to see that everyone is here. All right, so smile big. We'll have some screenshots taken.
While we're doing this, I quickly need to shout out St. Scholastica SAC with our watch party tonight. Good to see you, Saints, in action.
Yeah, so kind of as we close tonight's virtual town hall, I just want to extend my gratitude to everyone who joined and participated. But before we officially wrap up, we'd love to just open the floor for any additional questions, comments, discussions. So feel free to share any thoughts or ask any questions, to specific presenters or stuff like that. I know we have a couple coming in right now, so I'll kind of read those off and kind of go from there. So the first one, Grace, is for you. Are there plans to expand the initiatives discussed, such as the hashtag Thrive Together virtual town hall, to other NCAA divisions?
It's a great question to start it off, Dom. Thank you for whoever asked that. But I think the Thrive Together virtual town hall has really just been focused on Division Three. We had this idea back in July, and we kind of took and ran with it. And this is the first time that it's ever been done. And so I think we're learning a lot. But I definitely think there's potential for similar initiatives to expand across Division One and Division Two. Each division obviously has their own unique needs, but I think collaboration really could create a unified approach to supporting the student athlete well-being.
Yeah, amazing. And so the next one, let's see here. This is for Lillian and Caitlin. During challenging times such as losing streaks or injuries, what are the most effective ways that athletes can stay motivated during those times?
So I think a huge part of like staying motivated is remembering why you're playing the sport. Everybody plays the sport that they love, especially at the collegiate level. So, sometimes injury is a setback, but remembering that you can still move forward, and if you push yourself to succeed, then you will be able to get back to where you were originally. And as for losing streaks, I think that comes with coming together as a team and like remembering like you all are a family and playing for one reason.
Yeah, I think Caitlin answered that perfectly. I would say, as someone who has been injured and has missed seasons myself, it definitely means that you have to prioritize reaching out to others and staying motivated through your recovery. So it's just a different end goal rather than being able to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do really well on the field. I'm going to score all these goals. Now it's just like, okay, I'm going to put in 5 minutes a day extra rehab to get back. So it's just changing your mindset to help with that motivation.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I'm going to shoot this one over to Holly. Should these conversations start as a group or on an individual basis to provide resources for those individuals struggling with mental and physical health and stuff like that?
Really good question. I honestly think conversations can start at any level. When you're in a group setting, sometimes it can be intimidating to talk about, heavy subjects like mental and physical health for some people. So I think, facilitating an environment where anyone can kind of talk to anyone about those kinds of things, I think is really positive, especially if you have like captains or team leaders on a team. They're the ones that foster positive team environment for, the teammates. The team looks up to the captains, and they really, take a huge role in leading the path to where the team is going. So I think in terms of talking about mental and physical health, it can be brought up, to a captain, to a coach, to an administrator, to your close friend. So I think there's a lot of options for that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's perfect. Um, the next one goes back into nutrition. So that was Jack and Josie. What are some common misconceptions student athletes have about proper nutrition, and how can they be addressed?
We have seen that research demonstrates that athletes do not understand the complete nutritional requirements, and they not only put an influence on the attitudes and recommendations by healthcare providers and coaches, but we also see that the most common misconceptions that student athletes tend to believe are things that they see on social media, promoted by different celebrities and famous athletes. The most important thing is to put an emphasis on research, physician and medical professional guidance, and NCAA resources. For example, a very common misconception is that fats are bad. However, good fats are healthy. Good fats being monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. We see that these are great for health. However, they are completely demolished by social media and different influencers, and that can have a drastic impact on athletes by cutting out those fats.
Just an overall balanced plate is what you need. Fibrous vegetables, healthy proteins, carbs, and healthy fats like avocado are a great way to set your plate, set yourself up for success. That's an easy way to steer around any misconceptions is with a hearty, full of vitamins and minerals meal. That's the best way to go around it.
Katie, go ahead.
Just clicking accidentally.
Oh, okay. Holly, I believe you touched on kind of the role of the captains and the teams, but if you just want to hit on that again, I know it was kind of built into your response, but kind of what role do captains and team leaders play in those kind of conversations with mental health?
Again, another great talking point there. So kind of as I mentioned, captains and team leaders are the ones that facilitate that positive team environment. So oftentimes you might be I don't want to say intimidated by your coach, but you might be less reluctant to open up to your coach as you would to your teammates and things like that. So the team, in essence, really, looks up to the captains and the team leaders to lead as teammates. And like I said, they lead the path of what the team is going down. They can make or break a team environment, and each teammate's experience through, the way that the captain or team leader leads the team. So you might be wondering, maybe how can you improve on this? If you are a captain watching this and you want to improve your, leadership style or the way that you hold your team, I would suggest listening to your teammates instead of just doing what comes to your mind first. There's nothing wrong with asking others for opinions and what they would like to do. So, especially when you're leading a team environment with teammates who are playing the same sport as you, they're also student athletes. You guys have a lot in common. So, I think it's just a really good thing to kind of get to a common consensus of the best way to move forward and how to go about a situation.
Yeah, awesome response there. This one's for Adobe and Cami again. What advice would you give to athletes who feel overwhelmed by balancing mental health challenges and competitive expectations?
So I can start off with this question. First of all, great question. I would say there's two important key factors with this. First one being prior making sure your mental health is above your physical health. So understanding that your mental health is as important as your physical health. A strong mind supports peak performance. And the second one I would say is challenge negative self-talk. So as a soccer player, I make plenty of mistakes on the field, but if I just loathe on those negative self-talks after saying, "Oh, I'm not good enough for the sport. Why am I still playing?" Rather changing that negative self-talk into a, "I'm doing my best and that's enough," or "It was just a mistake. Let's move on."
I would also kind of recommend just having like a check-in with yourself. It's really important to do that just to kind of see where you're at. You can get overwhelmed, especially when you're playing a sport competitively. And as competitors ourselves, I think we can be really hard on ourselves. And it is okay to take a break as well. I think that that's something that not very many people want to say, but it's true. You are all amazing athletes, but just make sure you're checking in with yourself to see how you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't see any other questions coming in. Just give it another couple more seconds before we kind of wrap this up as it is closing in on 9:30 or 9:30 Eastern time, that is for me. Right then. Well, in that case, we just want to extend a huge thank you for everyone who participated in this event. Your presence and engagement have made tonight's discussion both meaningful and impactful. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we hope that the insights shared with you kind of inspire you to return to your campuses and communities, and that your commitment to fostering important conversations around mental and physical health is kind of what drives these events forward, right? So again, from myself, from Grace, from the rest of the subcommittee, and from all of D3 SAC, we want to say thank you again for your time, and we look forward to seeing positive differences and to make the D3 experience of a student athlete the best it can be. So have a wonderful evening. It's been awesome. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.